you ever wondered why you carry certain vices that seem to consume you from within? What if what most embarrasses you is actually what brings you closer to God? Could it be that what you call weakness is, in truth, a sacred code?
Carl Jung once said, "What we do not face within ourselves, we will meet as fate." But what if that fate, no matter how painful, is a sign that you were chosen for something greater? Picture this: a person silently battling a vice, blaming themselves, hiding, feeling weak. Meanwhile, the world says they're lost. Yet on an invisible level, that pain is being used to awaken them, to shape, to mark. All of us at some point face inner battles we can't quite explain. We feel a constant unease, an absence of peace that lingers even when everything seems fine. That isn't bad luck, weakness, or imbalance. Jung believed these are spiritual symptoms, manifestations of the unconscious trying to lead us back to our true self. In this video, we'll explore 6 vices that, through Jung's lens, are not signs of damnation, but of calling. Vices that carry hidden messages, that serve as divine seals upon those chosen to transform pain into healing, chaos into wisdom, and emptiness into purpose. And what if what you've tried hardest to hide is the very flame that reveals who you were meant to become? Prepare yourself for a journey that may turn your entire worldview upside down. From a young age, we were taught to hide our flaws, to camouflage what society labels as sin, deviation, or weakness. We were conditioned to believe that every vice is evidence of moral failure. But what if we've been completely mistaken? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and one of the most profound thinkers of the 20th century, saw vices through a radically different lens. To him, a vice was not necessarily an error to be corrected, but a symbol, a secret language of the soul. Jung believed that a vice is often a cry from the unconscious, a call to awaken. Think of the ancient prophets, saints, and great mystics of history. Many endured deep torment, went through dark phases, and plunged into self-destructive behavior before finding their mission. Moses killed a man. Paul persecuted Christians. Augustine surrendered to worldly pleasures. And yet, all of them were chosen. Jung saw a pattern in this. Inner chaos precedes revelation. When the soul is disconnected from its purpose, it screams. And it doesn't scream with gentle words. It screams through compulsions, excesses, vices, substances, toxic relationships, obsession with control, power, pleasure. All of these may be desperate attempts to fill an existential void that nothing in this world can satisfy. But here's the central truth. God does not mark His chosen ones with crowns, but with wounds. And those wounds often manifest as vices. We're not romanticizing suffering, we're revealing its hidden meaning. Jung said, "Where there is a vice, there is a deep desire for transformation. And only a soul that is profoundly sensitive, intensely alive, can feel that desire so brutally. That's why, so often, the chosen are also the most wounded. The pattern is clear. Before enlightenment comes the fall. Before healing, the crisis. The vice, then, can be seen as a baptism by fire, a process that burns away everything false so that the true self can emerge." Have you noticed how people with perfect lives rarely seek transformation? They live on the surface, but those who confront their vices confront themselves, and that takes courage, because a vice exposes what we try to hide from everyone, including ourselves. Jung reminds us, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That's exactly what vice does. It forces the soul to face its own darkness. And that's where God enters, not as a judge, but as a silent presence within the chaos. He doesn't wait for you to be clean to come close. He approaches you precisely in your fall, because that's when you are most vulnerable, most real, most stripped of masks. This process is like gold being purified. Fire doesn't destroy gold, it removes its impurities. In the same way, vice doesn't destroy a chosen soul. It simply reveals what must be healed for the mission to begin. So if you carry vices, compulsions, or inner struggles that seem endless, maybe it's not a mistake, maybe it's a sign. You are not broken, you are being shaped. This new perspective transforms guilt into self-understanding, fear into courage, shame into purpose, and most importantly, it restores to your pain the meaning it always had, to prepare you for something far greater than you can imagine. There is a hunger that doesn't belong to the body, a thirst that no water can quench, and an emptiness that remains, even after achieving everything you were told would be enough. If you know that feeling, then maybe it's not just restlessness. Maybe it's the echo of a divine calling. Carl Jung deeply understood this inner unease. For him, the chosen ones, on the souls destined for something greater, never find peace in superficial pleasures. There is always a hole, an absence, an anguish that refuses to fade. He called it anime sitis, the thirst of the soul. And what does this soul seek? Meaning, truth, purpose, but the modern world offers distraction instead of direction. That's why many of us confuse this spiritual thirst with anxiety, boredom, or chronic dissatisfaction. We look for answers in shopping, in relationships, in achievements. Yet the more we drink from these sources, the thirstier we become. Jung saw this as a sacred symptom. He said, Advam, the greatest problem of our time is not the fear of death, but inner emptiness. And for the chosen ones, this emptiness is not a flaw. It's a compass. It's what keeps us from settling. It's this silent ache that pulls us away from the surface and pushes us into the depths. While many are satisfied with ready-made answers, we want to know, why? For what purpose? Who am I really? This thirst is so intense that at times it turns into a compulsion for experiences. You move to a new city, change jobs, shift friendships. You search, you run, you question, and nothing seems to fill the void completely. It may look like instability, but in truth, it's the soul refusing to accept a life that doesn't honor its true essence. And here lies the key. This thirst is one of the clearest signs that you have been chosen, because those who haven't been, they're content. But the chosen carry within them a longing for something they've never lived, a desire for something they can't name, and aren't even sure exists. It's as if there were a spiritual memory of a mission, a place, a truth, and everything that isn't that hurts. That pain is real, and it isolates. Have you ever felt disconnected from the people around you, as if you spoke different languages? As if everyone else was satisfied with so little, while you felt that something far greater was calling you, even if you can't yet name it? That is the mark of spiritual thirst, and it demands silence. That's why many of the chosen seek solitude, not out of antisocial tendencies, but out of necessity, because it's in solitude that the soul hears clearly. It's in silence that thirst reveals itself as direction. Jung saw the solitude of the chosen as an invisible temple, a space where distractions fade, where the ego dissolves, and where the soul can receive its instructions. Perhaps that's why you feel drained after social interactions. It's not arrogance, it's sensitivity. The presence of others can sometimes blur the signal, and the chosen know, even unconsciously, that they must protect their frequency in order to receive what they came here to find. And here's a brutal truth. This thirst will never completely go away, because it was never meant to be quenched. It was meant to move you. It guides you. It protects you from mediocrity. It forces you to grow. And the discomfort it brings is exactly what keeps you from getting lost in the comfort of a life that has nothing to do with who you truly are. This restlessness and that eternal sense that something is missing is the invisible thread pulling you toward your mission. It's the silent reminder that you have something important to do, something no one else can do in your place. So don't fight this thirst, honor it. It is God's presence whispering that it's not yet time to settle, that there is still something to be done, that your journey is only beginning, because the chosen never rest until they find what their soul came here to seek. Why do some people seem to move through life with ease while others carry the weight of the world on their shoulders? Why do certain individuals face loss, rejection, trauma, and failure again and again, as if trapped in a cycle of suffering? And why, despite everything, do they remain standing? Carl Jung once said, "Where pain rules, there is potential for transformation." And perhaps that's the part no one told you. The pain you live with is not a punishment, it's training. Ordinary people live ordinary lives. But the chosen ones, they don't have the privilege of comfort. Their journeys are intense, filled with ruptures, disappointments, falls, and long silences. Not because they are weak, but because they are being forged. Jung observed that every soul destined to accomplish something great must first be shaped, and the most powerful instrument of that shaping is not joy, it's suffering. Suffering exposes, reveals, transforms, and above all, it tears us away from the illusion of control. That's why you've probably felt that life is testing you, because it is. Every frustration, every season of scarcity, every person who betrayed you, every time you were ignored or abandoned, none of it was random. It's a process, harsh, cruel, but necessary. Pain, that deep, unexplainable ache, has a secret purpose, to break the ego and free the essence. When everything is fine, we don't change, we don't question, we don't awaken. But pain is like dynamite that implodes what is false within us. It destroys masks, emotional addictions, limiting beliefs. And when everything lies in ruins, something true begins to emerge. Have you noticed how, after great pain, your perception changes? You start seeing people differently. You value silence, you feel compassion for those you once judged. That is spiritual maturity. And it is born only after the ground disappears beneath you. Jung said, "The tree that reaches to heaven must have roots that touch hell." In other words, the deeper your pain, the higher the calling that awaits you. But here's a detail few people understand. The pain of the chosen is not only personal, it's collective. You feel the weight of the world. You suffer for the pain of others. You get involved in causes, try to save those who never asked for help. You carry such vast empathy that, at times, it suffocates you. That's not weakness. It's a sign that you are connected to something much greater than your own story. The chosen ones are like bridges between human suffering and divine healing, and to build that bridge, they must first know the abyss. You can't heal what you've never felt in your own flesh. That's why your pain is different. It's deep, repetitive, sometimes even unfair, but it's preparing you. It's shaping in you a rare ability to understand others, not with your mind, but with your heart. And here comes a hard truth. The pain you've spent your life trying to avoid might be your greatest gift, because when you learn to walk through it without losing yourself, you'll become a lighthouse for those still caught in the storm. If you've survived things that should have destroyed you, know this: it was not in vain. Every tear was a step, every loss a revelation, every crisis a calling, and even when everything seemed dark, something within you kept pushing forward. That is spiritual strength, and it is born only in those who have been broken inside, yet chose not to give up. So stop asking why me, and start asking what for. The answer might change everything. Have you ever noticed that there's a kind of pain that never goes away? No matter how much time passes, how many therapies you try, or how many times you start over, it remains there like a scar that throbs in moments of silence. This isn't just any pain. It has a name. Jung called it the sacred wound. It's that experience or sequence of experiences that marks your soul in a definitive way. It might be an abandonment, a rejection, a profound loss, or a humiliation that tore you apart. Something that, even after years, still shapes how you see the world, how you relate, how you love, or how you protect yourself from loving. And no matter how hard you try to get rid of it, it insists on following you. But what if I told you that this wound is your true source of power? Jung believed that the wound we receive at the beginning of our spiritual life is the same place through which light enters. In other words, what hurt you the most is also what will transform you. This isn't cheap poetry. It's soul alchemy. The chosen one isn't simply someone strong. They are someone wounded, who decides to turn pain into purpose. And that wound isn't an accident. It was assigned to you as a part of your preparation, because only those who have reached the bottom can understand the despair of those still there. Jung saw the chosen one as a wounded healer, someone who doesn't offer healing because they live a perfect life, but because they've learned to live with imperfection. The sacred wound doesn't disappear, it transforms. And it's in that process that the chosen one begins to fulfill their destiny. Have you noticed how many of your most compassionate actions are born precisely from the pain you've endured? If your wound is abandonment, you embrace others more tenderly. If it's betrayal, you sense hidden intentions. If it's humiliation, you respect those society despises. Your pain becomes a language, and your body a testimony. But there's something even deeper. That wound is often not only yours, it's ancestral. It passes through generations. Many times you're healing traumas that began long before you were born. It's as if your soul chose to carry this weight to break a cycle that has hurt many others before you. And that's an immense responsibility, but also an honor, because only a very brave soul would accept such a mission. The sacred wound humanizes you. It protects you from arrogance. It prevents power from corrupting you. It reminds you every day of your fragility. And it's precisely because of that fragility that you become trustworthy enough to carry healing. because the chosen one never heals from superiority. They heal from empathy. When you stop fighting against your wound and begin to embrace it, something magical happens. It ceases to be a burden and becomes direction. It stops being ruin and becomes a portal. It stops being shame and becomes truth. What once paralyzed you now propels you forward, and what once seemed to define you negatively now connects you to others in deep, genuine, transformative ways. The sacred wound is your seal, not to limit you, but to remind you who you came to heal, starting with yourself. Maybe now you can see everything differently. What once brought you shame can now be seen with reverence. What once seemed like a sign of failure may be the invisible seal of a chosen soul. The vices you carry, the thirst that never fades, the pain that never leaves. None of these are detours from the path. They are the path. Carl Jung showed us that the darkest places of the soul are, in fact, sacred doors, and that what you spend your life trying to fix within yourself may be precisely what makes you capable of healing others. This is the silent beauty of the chosen ones. They are not perfect. They are profound. They feel too much, think too much, suffer in silence while the world calls them too sensitive. But what no one sees is that behind that sensitivity lives an ancestral strength. You've survived pains many couldn't bear. You've carried weights that were never yours. You've cried in the dark while making others smile. And still here you are, seeking to understand, seeking meaning, seeking something that may not even have a name, but that your soul recognizes. That alone is proof enough. You were never lost. You were always being guided, not through easy paths, but through a sacred process that only the chosen can understand. And if this message touched you in any way, if something here awakened a forgotten memory within you, it's because your soul recognized the truth behind the words. From now on, look at your pain with new eyes, not as obstacles, but as instruments, not as enemies, but as messengers of your mission. Every time you feel the emptiness, the restlessness, the weight of responsibility, or the wound pulsing again, breathe. And remember, it's just God whispering, you are still in process, but you have already been chosen. You know, when I first started studying Jung, I wasn't looking for knowledge. Honestly, I was just trying to understand why I felt so out of place, why it seemed like I carried within me some kind of ancient sadness, a pain with no clear reason, one that kept returning even in happy moments. There was one night in particular that I'll never forget. I was sitting on the bathroom floor. The lights were off, complete silence. One of those nights when the whole world seems to be asleep, except you. In that moment I felt broken, completely shattered. But it wasn't an ordinary sadness. It was a question, a silent, unbearable question. Why me? Why do I feel so much? Why can't I adapt to this life of forced smiles and hollow happiness? Why does it feel like I came into this world with a map no one else received? It was there in that raw, sleepless night that I stumbled, maybe guided, upon a line from Jung that said, "The meeting with the self is often experienced as a defeat." I reread it, again and again, and for the first time that pain I felt started to make sense. I wasn't failing. I was being initiated. That sentence became a portal. It led me to studies, books, reflections, silences, but more than that, it led me back to myself. And that's why I'm here now, because maybe you're going through that same moment. Maybe you're also trying to understand why you feel this invisible pain no one else seems to notice. Maybe you also think you're too much, too sensitive, too intense, too strange. But what if all of that is actually a sign that you carry a rare soul? The world doesn't teach us how to handle that. There's no manual for old souls, no school for people who feel the invisible. But here on this channel, in this space, we're building that together. A kind of philosophical shelter for those who never quite found their place. And if at any point in this video you felt seen, recognized, or touched, then you understood. This isn't about information, it's about revelation. And hey, thank you, truly. Thank you for staying until the end, for listening with your heart, for having the courage to look within, even when what you found there hurt. This is the beginning of something much greater. So, from my soul to yours, you are not alone, you never were, and now, more than ever, you aren't, now. If this video touched you in any way, though if at any moment you thought, that's me, then do this, like this video. Not because it helps the channel, even though it does, but because it's your way of saying, I recognize my journey. Leave a comment below. Which of the 6 marks do you feel the most? Which one has followed you the longest? I want to read it. I want to know what this video awakened in you. And if someone comments that they don't feel any of them, it just means they're still in spiritual sleep mode, with compassion, of course. And subscribe to the channel. But only if you're ready to keep digging deeper, because there's nothing shallow here. We go as far as the soul cries for help, and if you're seeing the videos that are appearing on your screen right now, be careful. They might contain truths you're not ready to hear. Or maybe they're exactly what you've been waiting to find for years. Go ahead, the journey continues.